wasn't it built? It hurts me. That means I'm also to blame. What sins have I done?
Wherever you get your podcasts from, or our own website, prismoftorah.com. This is The Prism of Torah with Rabbi Asaf Aaron Prisman.
Shalom Uvracha. As we have approached and started the Tkufa of the 9 days, we know the halachas pertaining to mourning are becoming more and more extreme, and the climax will be as we reach Tisha B'Av, where we have to fast, can't even wash our hands properly, etc., etc. What I want to share with you is two ideas. The first one, which I want to briefly discuss, is Chazal tell us, look carefully, the Meiri speaks it out in the Pele Yoetz, that aside from the dry halachas of mourning that we do on Tisha B'Av, the most important thing is to feel the pain and sorrow of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And that's what it says. Whoever feels the pain and sorrow, he'll also be part of the simcha when the Beis HaMikdash will be constructed. And the question is, first question I want to deal with is, why is it that in Dafka that Nakuda is so hard for us to do? And especially in our generation. Why is it so difficult for us to do? And I would like to suggest that the reason for that is because we don't really understand, and we cannot so much relate to what it meant to have a life with the Beis HaMikdash. It was a totally different era. When Beis HaMikdash was around, everything was different. And how can we live up to that idea, to that understanding in our hearts, not only in our minds? The way to do it is to, if you know it already, you have to refresh your memory and relearn the Chazals, at least the main ones, and see what it meant to have Beis HaMikdash. Aside from what the Mishnayos say about all the miracles that happened, the Gra and Mishlei tells us that the Shechina that dwelt in the Beis HaMikdash was extreme. It totally changed everything. All the wisdoms that we were able to get, especially the Torah, was a different ballgame. Ad kedei kach that when we say at the end of Tefillah all the time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we want Beis HaMikdash back and then give us a chelik in the Torah. What do you mean? We don't have the Torah today? We do, but it's a different ballgame. The level of Torah that was given and that was from the Shechina, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the times of Beis HaMikdash, was totally different. So why do we not feel it? Number one, we have to work on ourselves. We have to learn a little bit about what it meant and what happened during the times of Beis HaMikdash. And through learning, we can connect it. We understand what we're lacking and it'll hurt us. And that's why Talmidei Chachamim, they do feel a bit, because they feel what we're lacking, because they always learn and they realize that this is what we're missing. But it's more than that. It's more than that. Why do Talmidei Chachamim feel a bit more? And there's many references to that in the Torah, in the Gemara, also in Psachim, that Talmidei Chachamim feel a bit more. That is because the Makkah of our generation is Dafka in Gashmis, everyone always wants to aspire for more. They want this, they want a bigger table, a better couch, a bigger house, a bigger pool, whatever it is. That's what, unfortunately, the Western culture affects us, and that is our generation today. But what we need to do is Dafka in Gashmis, be happy with what you have. Don't always want more. Where do you, want to always want more? In Ruchnius. Ruchnius is when we should aspire for more. And that is what the Mesilas Yesharim says. Shleimus is the most important thing. A person doesn't have shleimus in Ruchnius. That is pain. And if we felt that pain, then we would feel the pain of the lack of Beis HaMikdash. Because through the Beis HaMikdash, a person was able to reach a lot of higher heights in spirituality, in Ruchnius. And hence, if we felt that, we need the Beis HaMikdash. But that has to come also from putting the bar higher up. And not just saying, okay, everyone around me doesn't care so much. I also don't care so much. So I have kviyus for the Torah. I learn a bit every day. I work on myself a little bit. That's it. I'll take one halacha to be better this year and that's it. No, we have to aspire for way more. And only once we aspire for way more, we will realize that what's making it so hard for us to reach those levels is the lack of the Beis HaMikdash. Because when the Shechina was around, everything was different. There's a lot to talk about this, but I want to move on to the next point, and I'll just summarize it through the story that is brought down. Rav Eliyahu Lapian brings it in his Sefer Lev Eliyahu, which is brought down from the Sefer Toras Ha'oilo La'aramo, about the famous, I don't know how famous it is, a story that the biggest philosopher at the time, Apalton, went together with Nebuchadnezzar after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, and he went to Har HaBayit, and he saw Yirmiyahu crying to an extreme. Couldn't even catch his breath. And he asks, you are the wise person, the Jewish people? I have two questions for you. Question number one, why are you crying? It's only sticks and stones. Question number two, that's it. Beis HaMikdash was destroyed now. What's the point of crying about it? So Yirmiyahu said to him, you're the biggest philosopher out there. Surely you still have some questions you don't have answered. Why don't you try them on me? So he said, of course I have questions that are not answered, but I don't think anyone in the world can answer me. So Yirmiyahu said, try me. So he tried him and he couldn't believe it. One by one, he gave him a perfect answer. He was in shock. He couldn't believe he was looking at a human being in front of him. And Yirmiyahu looked at him and said to him, you should know, it's only because of these sticks and stones that I was able to answer you. And by the way, regarding your second question, why am I crying about something that was destroyed? You're not going to be able to understand the answer, so I'm not even going to tell you. This summarizes everything. The first answer he told him, that I was able to answer that only because of these sticks and stones, because it's through the Shekhinah, the divine presence that was with a great intensity upon Klal Yisrael, that we were able to reach very high levels in spirituality. And that's what life is all about. Answer number 2, he said, you don't understand what that is. To be able to, through the Shekhinah, connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu and become on a higher spiritual level. But I think behind the second answer that he told him you won't be able to understand, I think it's related to the next topic I want to raise. And that will answer the following question, which is similar to what the philosopher asked Yirmiyahu. And that is, the Shla Kadosh asked it as well. And he says, how can it be? What's the point of feeling pain and sorrow about the past? What's that going to help? That's something the Goyim do. But it's not matim for us, it's heaven. What's the point of that? To answer that question, we'll raise another point, what Reb Chaim Friedlander says in his Sefer Siftei Chaim. And he says that aside from the obvious idea of Tisha B'Av, that's supposed to be mourning and being pained by the lack of the Beis HaMikdash, you should know, he says, that this day is a moedik day. It's a day that a person can reach such a high level in spirituality-wise, just like Yom Kippur. And he's not saying this on his own. He's saying it based on the Ori Soil, which is Rabbi Soil Misalant. Rabbi Soil Misalanto says this. And the question is, how can you explain that? And the concept is very simple. A person has to leverage off Tisha B'Av. And it shouldn't end just with the pain. Yes, you should feel pain, and it's good to feel pain because that means you're aspiring for higher levels and you realize how much we're lacking, that the Shekhinah is not here. We can't be as close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu like we were in previous generations, which helps us not be affected by the Goyim around us and reach a high level. But it's way more than that, because Chazal tell us that we know every generation that Beis HaMikdash, or every year that the Beis HaMikdash wasn't rebuilt, it means that it would have been destructed in that year as well. The Beis HaLevi goes in Lamdas to explain, because for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, taking something away, maybe for a human person, it's way harder to take something away after they gave it to you. But not to give you in the first place is not as hard. For HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's all the same. You deserve, you'll have it. You don't deserve, you'll take it away. So it's the same thing, giving and taking away, or just not giving. So the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't give us Beis HaMikdash in our generation, it means we're guilty as charged, just like the previous generations, if not more, for the fact that the Beis HaMikdash wasn't reconstructed in our times. And therefore, everyone has to do cheshbon nefesh in this day. Why wasn't it built? It hurts me. That means I'm also to blame. What sins have I done? A person has to leverage off of Tisha B'Av. It should be a wake-up call to do tshuva. What are the chataim we did? In fact, the Rambam says this in a general sense in Hilchos Avelus, Perek Yud Gimel, Halacha Yud Beis, that Ikar Avodas HaAvelus is this idea that a person is achzari. He's a cruel person if something happens to someone close to him or someone passes away and it doesn't change him and he doesn't come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and do cheshbon nefesh and rectify his sins. That's the name of the game. And that's what we need to do also on Tisha B'Av. We should also do cheshbon nefesh. And if we do cheshbon nefesh, it's very similar to Yom Kippur, that we try to work on ourselves and say, that's it, from now on to change. And through us changing, we'll bring ourselves and Klal Yisrael one step closer to the Binyan Beis HaMikdash, b'mira v'yameinu. And that's the name of the game. And if you do that, indeed, there is a very strong comparison to Yom Kippur. And I saw B'Shem Rabbi Cheskel Zatzal, in Cheskel Levenstein, that a person that does this properly and doesn't only feel the pain but also tries to work on themselves and become better, he's actually being an active part in the Binyan Beis HaMikdash, because that's how we get closer to the new Beis HaMikdash that will be built, because that is part of the tikkun. When everyone works on his midot and tries to become a better person, he himself will be part of Binyan Beis HaMikdash. And that is actually mefulish what the Shla says in Maseches Tainis, that al yedei ha'avelus al churban habayis hu osek bebinyan habayis. And that's exactly how we can leverage off of Tisha B'Av from a morning in the Beis HaMikdash to already having our step into the door being part of the Binyan Beis HaMikdash. Before I end with the story that will bring out this point, a mashal, not a story, I just want us to summarize. There's 2 points over here. First of all, a person should work, and that's why I'm trying to send this a week before Tisha B'Av, to learn a little bit about what times were like when there was the Beis HaMikdash. What miracles happened? What a high level of intensity of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu we had. Klal Yisrael were an unbelievable level of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that helped them reach high levels in spirituality. To feel that pain, you have to have she'ifas. You have to want to reach a high level. If you're happy with what you have, your big house and your pool and whatever it is you have, and that's all you care about, then you're not going to get there. But if a person feels it's not the same, things could be like they were once upon a time, you feel the pain. You realize what it was then, and you realize that that is a stumbling block from a person reaching even higher spiritual heights. That indeed will bring you tears to your eyes and pain in your heart. And through that pain, we leverage off to the second point we made, which is that we realize that we're also to blame, because the fact that Beis HaMikdash wasn't created in our times, that means we're just as to blame. And hence, we're not wasting our time by crying about the past. It's very understandable what we're crying, but we're not just crying about the past. We're crying about every second right now, because every second could have been different had the Beis HaMikdash created. And therefore, we're leveraging off of that to realize we're to blame and we can do something about it. If everyone does something about it, we'll be a lot closer to Mashiach Tzidkenu b'Mirav Yameinu. I want to end off with a mashal that I heard B'Shem Rav Sharabi Zatzal, and he said this mashal to do with Tkiyas HaShofar on Rosh Hashanah and what Tkiyas HaShofar should do. And now I'm going to connect it to the idea we said now about Tisha B'Av. The story goes as follows. Once upon a time there was a king, and the king had one son, a prince. And he was very worried because he didn't think he was such a smart kid. And how is he going to be the next king? And what am I going to do? So he said, maybe we'll give him another chance. We'll send him to the nearby marketplace over here. He gave him 2 big bags of money and two bodyguards so that no one will steal the money from him. And he says, just buy something you think will be good and we can make money out of it. You choose whatever. So he went. And as he approaches the marketplace, suddenly he sees in the background a big fire. He sees a person running up to this tall tower, taking a horn, it looked like a shofar, and he started blowing, and suddenly he sees that the fire was gone in the background. He couldn't believe it. Obviously what happened was that shofar acted as an alarm clock, and that alarm alarmed all the people, and they ran, and each one brought a bucket of water until they got rid of the fire. But this person didn't chap that, he didn't realize that. So he ran up with his bodyguards to the tower and he said, excuse me, sir, how much are you willing to sell that incredible piece you have there? He goes, what do you mean, this trumpet shofar thing? He goes, yeah. He says, before he answered, the guy in the tower hopped and realized what's happening here. And he said, well, how much do you have? So he showed him the 2 big bags. He goes, I'll tell you the truth. This is something very special. I'm willing to sell it to you. Really, the market price for this is double what you have here, but I'm willing for you to give it for this amount. He was so excited. He thought he got the best mitzvah ever. He jumps on this, gives him the money, takes the shofar, runs back to his father, the king, can't wait to show him. And the king says, no, what do you have to show to us? And he shows him the shofar. And he says, you don't know, this is unbelievable. Why is it so unbelievable? He goes, tell people to make a fire. So he calls 2 servants to make a fire. They make a fire and he starts blowing the shofar. Nothing's happening. Meanwhile, the king hops and realizes what has happened, and he tells him, "You fool! Don't you realize the shofar is not what gets rid of the fire? The shofar alarms the people to work and use the water to get rid of the fire." So Rav Sharabi Zatzal used it as a mashal to say on Rosh Hashanah, we can't just think that the shofar does the work for us. The shofar awakens us to do tshuva. Just like it awakened those people to put water on the fire, it should awaken us up to have tears. And the tears in our eyes that'll come down, that'll be like the water to get rid of the fire. That's because we regret all the averos we did and we want to come back to Hashem and do tshuva. And now I want to connect it to Tisha B'Av based on what we're saying. Indeed, just feeling the pain, that's not enough. We want to do way more than that. We want to be like Yom Kippur, leverage off of the pain. Tisha B'Av is like the shofar. The pain we feel is coming from the fact we have a day that we're commemorating the sad point that we lost Beis HaMikdash. And when we realize what life was before and what life is now, we realize that the par is extreme. But that in itself is not enough. That should leverage us, we should leverage off of that, just like the Rambam says in any Avelus. A person should do cheshbon nefesh, and by doing that, through the wake-up call of Tisha B'Av, we do tshuva, and hence will be parts, and hopefully zoiche, to be part of Binyan Beis HaMikdash b'mirav yamim.
Thank you for joining us. This is the Prism of Torah. Visit our website, prismoftorah.com, where you'll find a full archive of hundreds of past Divrei Torah. Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends and family. Sponsorship opportunities are available for all of our episodes. Thank you, Yona Vefa, for your recording equipment. Produced by Eli Podcast Productions.